Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Philip Phillips, and I'm the Associate Dean of the University Honors College here at MTSU. And I'm pleased to welcome all of you to our lecture series on citizenship, immigration, and refugees. Our topic today is on Islamophobia and anti-immigrant sentiments in Middle Tennessee. And it's my pleasure today to welcome our speaker, Daoud Abudiab, who is president and founder of the Faith and Culture Center in Nashville. He's a veteran healthcare executive with around 25 years or more experience in physician group management. He received his Master of Health Services Administration from the University of Arkansas at Little Rock. In 2010, he was recognized by the Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition with the Johnny Hayes American Dream Award, and in 2012 received the Rising Advocate Award by the Tennessee Human Rights Commission. To say that Daoud is actively involved in several Middle Tennessee community organizations is an understatement. He's president of the Islamic Center of Columbia here in Tennessee, president of the Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition, a member of the Nashville United Nations Association Cordell Hull Chapter Board of Directors, a member of the Family of Abraham and the Circle of Friends, an advisory board member of the Atlantic Institute, past president of Giles County Leadership, and past co-chair of the American Muslim Advisory Council of Tennessee, and others that I've not mentioned. Just this past weekend, he hosted the second annual Our Muslim Neighbor Conference in Nashville, which featured Imam Talib Sharif, from the Nation's Mosque in Washington, D.C., and Dr. Larissa Hawkins, visiting faculty fellow at the University of Virginia's Institute for Advanced Studies in Culture, as well as a variety of special sessions with a diverse crowd of over 150, 200 people in attendance. Our Muslim Neighbor is a pilot of a national initiative of Religions for Peace USA in Nashville. The Faith and Culture Center develops and implements programs designed to advance understanding of Islam and Muslims in Middle Tennessee, a region identified by the Center for American Progress as arguably one of the most Islamophobic areas in America. I had the pleasure of meeting Daoud and his family for the first time at an event called A Seat at the Table. At this event, Muslims and non-Muslims come together to eat a wonderful meal and to get to know each other one-on-one as human beings. Since then, I've attended 2 more A Seat at the Table events and plan to attend more, as well as the Faith and Culture Center's most recent Our Muslim Neighbor Conference. I consider Daoud to be my friend. I believe very strongly in the good work that he's doing here in Middle Tennessee to promote peace and mutual understanding, and I ask you to join me in welcoming him today to MTSU. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction, and it is good to be with you. Hopefully I get to share with you something of relevance to your life. To me, life is all about choices. And there are times when we learn about things that stick with us and may be irrelevant at the moment to what you're doing. But as young college students, you're the influencers of the future. And I'm excited to share with you a little bit about some of the work that I do, but also about my own personal experience. You may have picked up in the introduction a little bit about what I spend my time on in the community. For about 8 hours a day, I engage in my professional health care management, full-time job, but I also spend almost too much time that I take away from maybe personal rest and family. And the most important thing you walk away with today is always balance your time. I have regrets at times that I could have spent more time with my young son who just went off to college, or my little one when he was playing soccer. But then I look at the community and I know what I'm doing is not for myself. I know that my engagement is for the sake of my children. And it sounds cliche, but maybe also my grandchildren. I'm going to talk today a little bit about immigrant, refugee, and Muslims. But I'm going to talk about the anti-sentiment. I'm a strong believer that the sentiment towards these three groups is not because of arriving at a place in logic. It's not because of knowledge. It is helpful to know what is factual, what is not. But that is not what generates the sentiment. Sometimes those facts, the information that you gain, will help dispel some of that sentiment. A lot of times it's unearned sentiment. But one of the most powerful ways is to get to know someone. In my work, I've learned that there's a very good chance that new information will be interpreted in light of existing information. And so much of what I will share with you, though this may be new information, you're going to process that in your existing paradigm for what an immigrant is, who the refugee is, or what a Muslim is about. So I hope to share with you some information on those three categories and also allow you a chance to get to know me a little bit better. I'm going to use the Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition report that was released in December of 2015. I started to have this as the opening of my talk, but then I changed my mind. This is one of the Islamic centers in Nashville. Most of the congregants are immigrant. Some are refugee. The two largest refugee groups in Nashville refugees who have been resettled in Nashville are the Kurdish community, which is the largest outside of Kurdistan, Iraq. And the second largest comes from Somalia. There's about 35,000 Muslims. There's about 15 plus or minus. We really have very poor census information. So you can almost make it up, and if no one challenges you, just run with it. The second, the Somali, is maybe 5 to 7,000. And so this is a message. It certainly is not what many of you would say about our region, Southern hospitality, right? We're the South. You can walk in the front door and we'll all know that you are a stranger, right? Everybody comes through the back door. Nobody's a stranger. We almost never open the front door. That's what I learned when I invited friends from Pulaski, Tennessee. Every one of them came through the back door. And it's not easy. And I said, what's up with that? I learned that. So everybody's family, you come through the back door. Unless I see you as someone different or a challenge. Why do we get to that point? Why do we see people as different? They're guests in our country. They made a decision to leave one place, it's also called home, to come to another place because they heard it was great. Whether it is the best place on earth or not, you don't move from a wonderful setting to another that is less or equal. You move to another place that is better. And it's almost universal. You move not for yourself. You move so that you can make the lives of others better. So those immigrants and refugees, not only have they sacrificed in their countries, but they have also sacrificed by making the decision to come here, often without family or with family, and living in very unfavorable environments or circumstances. Some come here and still support families behind them. My son wanted to go to college and he wanted to be a couple hours away. After 3-4 weeks, he said, I miss home, I miss food, I miss mom. He hasn't yet said he misses dad, but he's missed mom. We're in a good place. We're moving in the right direction. So what happens? How do we get to develop a sentiment regarding our guests? We have a very rich tradition of welcoming immigrants. How many in this room is not an immigrant? So when I received my citizenship, when I became an American citizen, the judge said, remember never to be shy or embarrassed about where you came from, because that is the story of everyone in this room, including himself. We're all immigrants. We are more recent. I am a more recent immigrant than you are. This is a country of immigrants. We have favorable views of some immigrants. Immigration never stopped. It is not from one border. It is not by land alone. It is not by sea alone. We have immigration that comes from the north, the south, east, west. But when we're talking about anti-immigrant sentiment, we're not necessarily talking in Middle Tennessee about European immigrants. Anybody disagree with that? So I get a call. I'm in, where was I? Up north. I'm in DC with my wife, attending a conference, and a friend, a daughter of a friend, I haven't met her yet. And she calls me up and she says, Daoud, would you be able to come in about 6 o'clock tonight? I know it's last minute, but I would like for you to come in, and I'd like for you to meet with our special committee. We as a church would like to welcome some refugee families, maybe 2. And I said, well, wonderful. She said, don't get too excited yet. There's a couple of people who feel that it is the right thing to do, but we don't want those families to be Muslim. So, for one reason or another, we're discriminating against refugees. if refugees knew that they had classes, that some of them were even better than others. What an honor, what a compliment to say, you are a more acceptable refugee. This is the hospitality that some extend to the most vulnerable people on the face of earth. This is a reality. It is an ugly reality that we love to mask. And I don't sugarcoat it. And I hope that you'll excuse me for that. But I hope that you also feel challenged, because you have to go out there and you have to interpret new data, new information in light of what you know. And unless what you know is challenged, you're going to just take in whatever is logical or not. So there was a bombing. There was a bombing in Paris. By the way, I use this for two reasons. One, it is a very good report. Two, my wife is featured in it. This is my wife on the bottom. Her name is Robin. She's from, anybody want to guess what country? What does she look like? Her features. Where would you say she's from? Bosnia? Anybody know where Cabot, Arkansas is? So she's from Cabot, Arkansas. She's the daughter of a Methodist pastor. Her mom was raised Catholic. She's not brown. She's not black. She's German, English. These are two dear friends who work at the Tennessee Immigrant Refugee Rights Coalition, a Somali and a Latina. It's hard for me not to use this report and talk about myself, because in a sense, I'm all over this report, not by choice. And not because I'm president of TIRC, Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition. It's because in my talk, I want to go over why our story matters in Tennessee. I hope to cover the shifting demographics and why that is relevant. Why is there backlash against immigrants, refugees, and Muslims? The interaction with the national movement. And then what else have our legislators done to further protect us from ourselves? Can an immigrant be a citizen? So the representative that goes and enjoys space in Legislative Plaza, you and I have paid for that representative. He or she represent me just like they represent you. Just because we say immigrant doesn't necessarily mean non-citizen. Just because we say refugee, it doesn't mean non-American. I'm an American. I'm an immigrant. I'm an Arab. I'm a Palestinian. I'm a Muslim. I'm a father. I'm a professional. I'm all of those. I've learned from my interaction with the Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition and just simply existing, that any time that we label a group or an individual by one label, bad things are heading your way. How many in this audience are female and only female? You're not a mom, you're not a daughter, You're not a redhead. You're not a blonde. You're not tall. How many times have you been subject to having one label, somebody saying you are just, yeah? Anybody? I see some nodding, yeah? So we do that. We do that to one another. And sometimes it's pleasing. Sometimes it's, oh, well, thank you. You're tall. You're dark, you're handsome. But a lot of times it's, you're an immigrant. Somehow you stopped being an American. Sometimes you've stopped being human. And there's a rationale for it. You're not one of us. And therefore, you shouldn't enjoy what the rest of us have. And I'm still a good person, even though I am going to decline your humanity. And I'm going to withdraw your citizenship, figuratively. Where does that come from? How many of us are just born mean, take after our mean dad? We enjoy being harsh on the weak, on the needy, on the vulnerable? How many of us are that? Anytime that we do something, we need to justify it, and we need to, at the end of the day, still feel good about ourselves. And sometimes we get help. There was a bombing in Paris. How many people liked that worldwide? Few. Not just the people who did it. There were a few others. Some of them were Muslim. They were like, yes, we got them. And then it was like, oops. Them turned out to be Muslim, French, American. We killed fellow Muslims. And the world came together and the world said, you know, we're all Paris. We stand united. And then we start to move away and go like, I just don't like where it's crowded. Let me find a place less crowded. And you get a Governor Snyder from Michigan who says, my job is to protect people. As governor, I want to end taking in refugees in Michigan. That becomes appealing to about 30 other governors. And they say, absolutely. I'm going to be not re-elected. That's not what I'm worried about. I'm worried about you. And I want to keep you safe. In this election, we talk a lot about, are facts important or not? How many people think facts are important? You think, where do you find facts? Sometimes we fabricate those. They're not really facts. I don't know if you fabricate something, is it a fact? It's not a fact. But we present it as facts. It's self-serving. What happened in Tennessee? We decided, yes, we too, let us get on that wagon. We must protect our precious resources. There were also a couple of refugee families already here. One state senator said, why, we need to get the National Guard to pick him up, take him back, give him to the feds. They can sort that out. Uproot them. Families who are devastated left Syria, come here. Very little. I was embarrassed to give my pots and pans to help the couple of families who were here because they were not new. Because my pots and pans those were the ones I don't use anymore. My wife thinks they're not good anymore for us. This is what they're getting. They don't stay at the Omni. When we face our realities, if it doesn't stop here and it doesn't hurt here, there's something wrong, not with them, but with us. Even if we never take action, if it doesn't hurt going down, if we can take that in, that some family has been uprooted with children, then there's an issue there. So that's what our government was facing, and it passed. The U.S. House, it passed. And we wanted to freeze resettlement, stop it. But in the meantime, what did the rest of the world do? Remember in the beginning, what did they do? They said, we are Paris. Did they say we're no longer Syria? We got to pick and choose. And so the world was saying, we're Paris, we're Syria, we're going to take refugees. And they did, and they still do. But somehow, this most wonderful place on earth, a country of immigrants and refugees, were no longer welcoming of immigrants and refugees. So those things that happen, the bombings, those don't help. And it freaks us out. But you know, if we're left to ourselves, we're still the same kind-hearted, faithful people, or with a tradition. If faith is not part of our being, it doesn't mean we're not good. We have common values that allow us to lift others. And you don't lift the Kardashians. We do. I mean, they live better than most of us. We lift them. But I'm talking about lifting those here. So you're living in a rural area, and there is a group of people who look differently, speak differently, move just close by. There's a Tyson plant. My representative is doing his job. They get up and they go, well, we want to stop refugees from coming, or those who are resettled to come, and those immigrants to come to this town, because that's going to help. Why are facts important? This is of national policy, local policy, and global policy. And our lives are interconnected. I know it affects you when a number of Somalis move to work next door. You have new neighbors. But they were not resettled in Shelbyville. They were resettled in Nashville. And so all that legislation to limit people being resettled to this area, it's the result of misunderstandings and misinformation. Immigrants go where the rest of us go. What are you going to do after you graduate? Are you going to stay with mom and dad? Are you going to look for a job? Are you going to stay at the Pizza Hut? No, you're going to move where you have an opportunity. And guess what? If you have family somewhere that can help you out, and you have opportunity, there's a very good chance you're going to go there, or a friend. This is what refugees, this is what immigrants do. We all seek community. We want to live in community. And the hope is that one day I'm part of your community and you are of mine. But that's only if I am as American as you are, right? Which means that I welcome you equally, because this is my country. How many of you would be offended if I didn't welcome you? I don't care that your grandparents were here, so what? I don't care if you go 3 generations back. I'm an American. You don't have anything on me. I have to decide to welcome you and you and you or not. And out of the kindness in my heart, in my upbringing, in my faith tradition, I've learned to welcome the neighbor. Because that's who you are. You're my neighbor. I'm your neighbor. You can choose to just think of me as an immigrant or a refugee. It also doesn't help when it happens really fast. A couple of decades ago, there were so few, maybe that it wasn't worth reporting on immigrants. The numbers have gone to 300,000. 300,000 immigrants are noticeable. It's not just one person who could be a tourist lost around the square, dressed in a different garb. And you have an advantage. You're on campus. You see people playing Arabian music outside with a Saudi flag walking around, and you may like it or not like it. And some probably don't like it. And outside the campus, maybe many don't like it. And the campus and the administration and the professors have to be commended for bringing the world right here on this campus. To challenge you, to challenge your growth, your potential. Everybody I've met in my life has helped me grow, some more than others. But it makes us feel a little uncomfortable. There's somebody who looks different. They're growing in numbers. It's threatening. Sure, it's understandable. But what is the best way to deal with that? Is it to firebomb the Islamic Center in Columbia, Tennessee? Before that, which was my Islamic Center, I lived in Columbia, Tennessee, and it was firebombed. Anti-immigrant is nothing new. It used to be the Mexican restaurant or store, grocery store, even in Maryville, Tennessee, in Nashville, in other places. It was maybe the Buddhist temple. But then there was a shift towards the most prominent. Again, we even are able to create classism within immigrants. Those immigrants, i.e. Mexicans, are using up our resources. Anybody never heard that? They use so many of our resources, we can't even get decent health care. Our congressmen get it. Our representatives get excellent health care. Didn't affect them. Our corporate health care plans are rich. They're good. Students even get decent health care. They take and they don't give back. And so there was a study commissioned by how do we institutionalize anti-Muslim, anti-immigrant, and anti-refugee sentiments? Legislation. And sometimes we're not able to do it, so we reach out and we get help. There's national groups who specialize in anti-immigrant, anti-Muslim, and anti-refugee legislation. So it moved from, and we see a pattern, by the way. When we look at the pattern of who the immigrant is, it changes. And so this is 1990. 30% came from Europe. In 1990, we didn't even bother. It didn't hurt our feelings that good-looking Europeans were coming here in droves. Or those smart Asians. You know what? Middle Easterners were part of those Asians. Some of them are. You know, it became more of a problem. Ooh, look at that biggest part of that pie. 46.8% from Latin America. Still a good chunk from almost 30% from Asia. Africa's 10%. Which one shrunk? As a percent, it's Europe. Doesn't mean that blonde, blue-eyed, white-complected people stopped coming here. It's just we've seen a faster growth rate in those other groups coming to Tennessee. Part of it is a policy decision to resettle in this area as opposed to East-West Coast. But also this is a growing economy. How do we know it's a growing economy? Because immigrants are moving here. And if it's a growing economy, that we are benefiting from it. So I mentioned there was a study commissioned by the need to have legislation that would cut off those who are just living off of us. Turns out 750,000 versus 750 versus 1.4. So we get twice the revenue to the services received by the immigrant community. 753 million to 1.4 billion in revenue. So people started to say, okay, we're not going to do that. It doesn't make sense to look at the immigrants and say that they are costing us money. So we have to find another thing. And it was security. It was, okay, we need to look at those Muslims. Let's bring in anti-Sharia law. In the mind of some, you can exchange one group for the other and it doesn't matter. Because they're not talking about the European, they're talking about certain individuals that come from a certain area. And so here comes the anti-Sharia bill. The anti-Sharia bill made it illegal for my wife and I to pray in the same room. It made it illegal for me to study my religion, to look up my scripture and the commentary on it, to become a better Muslim. It made it easy for others to sue my mosque because somebody who may have come through went crazy. It made it easy to freeze the assets of an Islamic center. When I said, if you are just one label, something bad is coming your way, and her way. It doesn't stop with one group. Whatever works on the Muslims is going to work on those Latinos, it's going to work against those. Sooner or later, those from Burma are not going to be shielded. Not even the Europeans are going to be shielded. This is how it works. And there's help. There's a national trend for specialists, as I mentioned. I had a meeting there was a conference in a town not too far from here, in Manchester. And Muslims were having a friendly conference. and the place was swarmed. Pamela Geller and others in New York, and she claims to be Jewish, not Christian, came to the South, appealed to the mostly Christian community, and rounded up 1,000 people to support her opposition to the Muslims being in this area. That's how popular Pamela Geller, who blogs against immigrants and refugees and Muslims in a bathing suit in water on a beach somewhere in New York City, that's how popular she is here. And this is how unpopular I was in my hometown, in my backyard. Though I pay taxes, though I am an American, because I represent also immigrants and I also represent Muslims. Due to the kindness, due to the value that each of you bring, your parents and others, we are able to see through that. What it's done is, this kind of hatred has moved and mobilized the Muslim, immigrant, and refugee, not refugee community, but those who value the refugees, have mobilized us as Catholics and others have been mobilized in the past. You mobilize as the most affected group, but you also seek support from those around you who share the same common values. Why is that important? Because we can't do it alone. And you can decide to either be an accomplice or you could decide to be an ally. Not of immigrants, but of human beings, fellow human beings, people like you. They don't all look in this photo to be immigrants, right? Not the way we know immigrants. Some look like Americans, who we think of when we think of Americans, but they're mostly Americans. We stand with one another, we stand united. Bad times, good times. When something bad happens, we unite. When somebody says, go home, we wipe that clean together. It's part of our history, but hopefully so that we don't repeat it. The immigrants are taking over. In Tennessee, 300,000 is 5%. National is 13%. It's not in logic. It's somebody's playing on our fears and creating an anti-sentiment. The minority groups, I mean, what a compliment to come into a room and say, none of you can do squat. You can. I don't care that there's 50 of you, but you, most powerful, you can affect change more all of them together. You, the immigrant, the refugee, with nothing on your back, you're going to take over this room. You're going to take over this campus. Not only that, but you're going to have us run by your own set of rules. Do you feel good? Powerful? It doesn't feel like a superhero. But in fact, if you follow the logic, we're saying he's a superhero. Are you into weightlifting?
I am.
You're probably very smart. You're in this building.
Thank you.
But so are the rest of you. And we can work together. There's enough for all of us. This is what community looks like. If we honor our tradition, our American values, if we honor ourselves, if we honor our parents even when their views are contrary to all of the above, and then we can share of ourselves for the betterment of this community where we live, where your children are going to sit next to my grandchildren. And your child's best friend is going to be little Muhammad. And you're going to take him, have pizza, play together. You're going to partner with my son when he gets out of college. And together you're going to be creating that future that doesn't distinguish between a redhead, a long hair, a blonde, a big guy, a small guy, a brown, a black. It's time we change that. Thank you for your patience. Appreciate you listening. I think I'm almost on time. That's fast.
And we do have time for questions.
One at a time, please. Yes.
Can you tell us about your own story on how you came here and stuff?
So I came here when I was 18. I'm a Palestinian. I lived in East Jerusalem, occupied. I went to college for 6 months. The college was going to be closed for a while, undetermined. There was unrest. I came to the States. Why? Because I had a brother. Immigrant story. I got my undergraduate, biology, chemistry. I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to heal the world, just like you, in one way or another. Then the first year, I found Robin. Oh, no. Within the first year, I was already off focus. I found Robin. I fell in love with her. We decided we were the right match. And finished college, we got married, we both got entry-level positions. She's a nurse. I said, okay, I gotta go to college here, I don't wanna go back. I got my master's, first job doing great, close to home, close to family. That wasn't good enough. I'm not sure that was the best decision. But I decided to come to Columbia. Why? Because the chief resident at Baptist Rehab Institute came here and he joined an orthopedic practice in Columbia, Tennessee. I came, I interviewed, I got the job. I looked for two things. I looked for a place to pray. I found one in Nashville on 12th South, and then I also found the other thing I was looking for, a Mediterranean restaurant. That's all that mattered to me. I was in heaven. My salary tripled. What a great opportunity. My wife is traveling. She runs into an Egyptian and a Kurdish family, and we somehow can identify one another. And we're seeking to live in community. We founded an Islamic center of one room. We prayed together. We went unnoticed. We started getting noticed. There was a pleasant article in the local paper. A friend she became, and we were featured again. We established in 2001, from 98 to 2001. I have community. I have a place to worship, just like you. How wonderful is that? Through 2008, our politics started to change. And 3 people with a Christian identity movement decide to firebomb our Islamic center. They gave it a shot on Friday night, didn't work, got more gasoline, more bottles, figured out how to fix them, came back, kicked the door, firebombed, burned my daughter's toys. My daughter's first Quran. This was in 2008. Until today, I can't shake it off. This is the feeling that each of us gets when there's a Chattanooga shooting. I know. But I didn't hate you because you're Christian as well, or because you're white, or because you're from Middle Tennessee, or because you're Tennessean, or because you're American. I didn't. Within a day, I received a call from a Presbyterian minister. He said, I have a check for you from my congregation, and I also want you to stop by on Wednesday. He gave me a key. He said, you can use any room in this facility for as long as you need. I didn't need, but I thought it's part of reconciliation. We can pray in the back of the shoe store as we first started, in my closet in my house. I had rooms I couldn't use. I had a large house. I could have prayed there with my congregation. There weren't many. But I thought it was important because we're one community. The following Saturday, there was a vigil that Tennessee Immigrant Refugee Rights Coalition led. 35,000 people population. Less than 100 people showed up. African American church, Hispanic church. Anybody know where the farm is? So the hippie community from the farm said, can we come up and play drum? I said, absolutely. On that day, my sense of community changed. The definition of who my people are changed. It is those who share my common value where no skin color, no ethnicity, no language, no garb, no headscarf reduces me to subhuman. Where it becomes okay for you to harm, hurt, or ridicule, or pull my daughter's hijab. She doesn't wear one. My wife's hijab. And that's what got me started. It was, the American dream was not any longer about the large home, which is for sale, by the way. It wasn't about the cars we drive. I got 270,000 miles on a car, a great deal for a college student. It wasn't about that anymore. The American dream is about creating opportunity for others to continue with that American dream. It's about keeping it alive. It's about me enjoying that American dream, but making sure my neighbor, my daughter, my son, my friend's daughter, your grandchild, because you matter, and you matter, has that American dream. That's patriotism. Was that enough personal stuff? Another question? Yes.
I was interested in hearing about the Seat at the Table event. How often does that occur?
To hear Nadia, who coordinates those, 4 times a month.
4 times a month?
4 times a month. And I have the board, the whole board, they call it the council, from Religions for Peace. This is recorded and they can get this. That's okay. One of the members said, only on average, when we first launched, only on average 2 a month. I said, how many family reunions do you get together a year? Those are intense. But we share of ourselves. I mentioned earlier, so glad you asked this question, that the best way to know your neighbor, the best way for you to live out your faith, your values, to love your neighbor is to get to know them, to share with them. What makes you leave on Thanksgiving hating every family member? Is it the gravy? Is it the turkey? Is it the politics? Because we all agree within a family. Come on, which one of those? A, B, or C? All of the above? Or is it because we care about one another and we're going to come back to the same table where we disagreed? Why? Because people who are an extension of ourselves, my mom, my dad, my grandmother, my brother, my niece, we care for nieces we've never seen before. It's like weird, we send them gifts. I've never met her, she's only 1. But I love her. Why? Because I see her as an extension of me. But I don't see you as an extension, by the way. I don't care how powerful you are. You're not an extension of me, and I don't really care. If we disagree, I'm going to walk away. It is to get to know one another. During those, we bring people of diverse backgrounds, neighbors, same region. We provide Faith and Culture Center, our Muslim Neighbor Initiative. We provide a meal, so you don't have to complain about, I gotta cook. How many people think potlucks are great food? Some are, but everybody brought a salad? Good Lord. And orange crush drinks. Somebody loves those. Actually, those are my favorite. Give me heartburn. So we remove that barrier to getting to know one another. The other barrier is that we're intentional. My wife works as a nurse. After 7 years working with a fellow nurse, she built up enough courage to say that thing you wear on your hair, I don't know what to call it, but what is it? And why do you wear it? After 7 years, another one said, have you ever killed it? Have you ever blown off anybody? And my wife waited for it, like you. There's a punchline somewhere, it never came. And so we provide an opportunity where in your busy lives, in our busy lives, we can go to someone's home, house, or a church, or a basement, or a classroom, and enjoy a meal where we talk not about Islam versus Christianity, or what percent of the immigrant community is, Muslim. But we talk about what matters to us, who we are. We tell our stories. We do this. We start, you think it's bad being an immigrant. I'll tell you what. You think black lives matter? White lives matter, right? You think you got it bad. You've been discriminated against? I'll show you what discrimination. You got into this college because of your skin color, right? And we start sharing scars and find out that we all bleed the same color. And we find out that we've never had this conversation about race, about being black, about being white. I'm not a racist, but I think I'm better than you. I don't hate you. I'm just indifferent to you. Those are conversations we never have. So we bring food, the universal language. And the second thing we bring is a facilitator, so that we may have an intentional conversation where at the end of that there is a true opportunity for us to seek one another. There is a level of comfort. We've had over 50 of those, over 800. We do about 4 to 5 a month. Anybody can host. It doesn't matter. There's a place. You eat. I know you eat. And you eat somewhere. And that somewhere is good enough. It could be a restaurant, could be, you don't pay, you don't do anything, you just show up. And we've had one at the Block. How many people know where the Block restaurant is? Farm to table, yes? I'm going to put a plug for this guy, because he was saying maybe they can't continue with the business. He passes by a park, our Muslim neighbor picnic. Muslim neighbors and non-Muslim neighbors come together. It's raining, it's pouring down. He passes by. He says, hey, what's this? Oh, we were about to grill, and we just can't do that. He said, give me all your food. I have a restaurant. I'm going to grill that, bring it back. And the guy is going like, I'm going to trust you with all the food I have? Guess what the special is going to be at that restaurant? Grilled chicken. And cheap, $5.99, you get your fill. The guy takes it, grills it, brings it back. Guess why? Maybe one day he shared a meal. Guess also why? Because he's half Hispanic. His girlfriend has always been here. She's lived here. She never knew there was even a problem. He cooks a wonderful meal. We use that back room. He comes in with his wife and he says, I want to be a part of this. And he brings us free cheesecake. I like the guy. Thank you so much for your time.